Hello everyone, my name is Dixon Jones and thank you very much for coming along and having a look at the InLinks product. This is going to be a little bit of a masterclass. I've been asked by the team to dive into all of the major features of InLinks and explain why we built the system the way that we did. InLinks is really designed from the ground up around the concept of entities. So over the years, the search engines have moved from a keyword-based indexing system to a topic-based indexing system. So each idea in the world is, given its own record in a massive database called knowledge graph, and so then they can use that to relate ideas together. And so Google has done that. Other search engines have done that, and InLinks has done that as well. So InLinks has built its own knowledge graph, and has also built its own natural language processing algorithm, which really works well even on small amounts of text. So it can read, say, just something as short as a tweet and understand the underlying entities and how they relate to each other, and how they relate to our own knowledge graph. So we can use this to build a different kind of SEO suite. What we would like to call it is the world's best entity SEO tool suite. And I think that as you go through it, you'll see some similarities to other SEO suites that you may have used, but also at the foundation, a different approach, which is based around topics and concepts and entities, which becomes very powerful when you're doing search engine optimization and just building content that is better designed for your users and more knowledgeable in the content it outputs. So let's dive in. If you want to dive into a particular feature and you know something about InLinks, then if you're looking at this on, say, the InLinks Academy webpage, then hopefully we'll have some links within here that'll allow you to jump through to certain parts of the video. So this is the project dashboard when you log in. If you've got a brand new website, of course, you won't have any projects yet. So you'll see the ability to create a project and then some sort of features of the tool listed here, which may change over time. And there's a button here to allow you to book a demo. That will allow you to tap into the demonstrators and the team here and tap into their calendars and find a time that suits you and them to have a one-on-one. And we offer that free for anyone that wants to really dive in. It'll cover a lot of the same topics that I'm talking about today, but you may have questions, and I'm afraid I can't talk to everybody on an individual basis. So do dive in and have a demo if you want one. Also, just before I go too much further, let's explain this dashboard here, and particularly the active and the inactive buttons. There's green and red here. And what happens with InLinks is that to give ourselves a lot more power, we have one line of JavaScript code, which if you put it onto your website, in the footer of your website, you can do it whether you've got WordPress or Drupal or Shopify or anything. You can even do it using Google Tag Manager if you have no other way to add a line of code into your website. And the active ones are where the code has been added and you've really made one association of using InLinks a little bit. And that means that we can then manage all of your schema or all your content and FAQ schema, about schema that we use, and also your internal linking directly from the InLinks panel. So it will work out where you mention certain topics and build your internal links in the body of your text and inject it straight into the web page so that you don't have to manually go in and add all those. If you have an inactive website, it means that it's put into a project in InLinks, but you haven't got any code on the website. So it means that the only thing that we're doing is recommending where you put the links and where you put the schema and what schema you use and that kind of thing. So you can still use InLinks without making the code active on your website, but of course it's going to mean that you've got a lot more legwork in implementing the recommendations. Either way, if you want to optimize the content, which is a big part of InLinks, so we can help you identify what topics and ideas you need to talk about in any web page or content or even on your website, that doesn't update automatically on your website. We give you a WYSIWYG sort of editor that you can change the content on your own web on InLinks, and we can get the perfect wording. But then ultimately you're going to have to push that content onto your website. So that doesn't rely on whether your code is active or inactive. There's 4 really important parts of InLinks at the moment. 5 if you include our market trends, which shows you how topics are increasing and decreasing in popularity over time. But the main things that people use InLinks for are for keyword research, and that's a very different way of doing keyword research to a lot of the tools that are out there, and we'll start with that. We also will do internal linking, so we will optimize internal linking around entities and around topics. We'll also give you a content schema, which tells search engines what a page is mainly about and the ideas that they mention, as well as FAQ schema. And then finally, we'll help you optimize content so that you can create content that is truly knowledgeable, that makes sure it doesn't miss out important ideas that might be relevant to any search phrase or idea that you're trying to get recognized for. So I'm going to dive first into the keyword research. And the keyword research is, as I say, different to most of the other tools. The very first thing that we do is when we do a keyword research report, you have to say what country you're doing your keyword research in. So I've done one here for the history of football in the UK and one here for the history of football in the US. And the UK is all about soccer, of course, and teams in the English Premiership and those kind of things. Whereas in the US, I'll focus on that one. It's much more about college football and American football and the NFL. So right away, we focus on what the audience is that is there for your product, and all through the InLinks system, we need to have a focus, a country focus, and a language focus, because we do use Google's search APIs to do lookups quite a bit, and Google's search API doesn't have a world value. It only has lookups by individual country and individual languages. So you have to set up that value in your project when you set up a project. So college football, American football, football championship, playoffs, NFL, these are all topic clusters. So what we do is, just like the tools that you're used to, we'll show you what the volume is for any particular phrase and sort of a keyword variations. But we also show verbs, which we'll come on to in a minute. And importantly, we cluster this information. So we cluster the information around ideas. So there are a whole bunch of keywords on the right hand side here that are around the concept of American football. So you might have a web page on American football, or you might have a section on American football, but that might be different to your page or section on the NFL, for example, and it may be different to your page on college football. And so you can have sections either as individual pages or whole sections to your website, but within there we've got questions, keywords and questions. So what we've done is we've thrown the idea of American football back into Google Suggest, and then run our natural language processing algorithm over the answers to find out all the kind of suggested ideas that Google comes out with in Google Suggest around American football. And then we've also put those through our natural language processing algorithms so that we know that something like the best American football team is probably more important than, for example, what country is American football most popular in. I mean, we know what the answer to that one is, but it's not as important or relevant to somebody that's talking about the history of American football. So this idea of clustering is really important. This ability to suggest questions that you might want to use is really important. And this idea of clustering, and finally this idea of user intent. And this idea of user intent, for the very first time, we're able to show you verbs in user intent. So the history of user intent and looking at user intent in search engines, even on the Wikipedia page to as of today, which is what's 4th of August 2022, Wikipedia explains user intent firstly as what the user is trying to do when they're searching for something, and then immediately then says that user intent has sort of 5 different phases. Either somebody is trying to navigate somewhere, they're trying to do a transaction, they're trying to get a local search or a few other or fresh information. So they're trying to get a few different categories of idea. That's way too simple for user intent. And user intent is much more nuanced. So by using verbs and understanding the verbs within searches, we're able to really help you provide content that is going to help what the user was trying to do when they type something into the search engine. So when they're talking about schedule, for example, then they're talking about the NFL football schedule or the playoff schedule. And these are the kind of words that they're looking at from different topic clusters. But that's very different to if they want to play American football. And so what college football teams play. Team plays Sandman into Sandman, which is a song, I believe. Which football position should I play? So there's a verb here that gives context to what the user is trying to do, and this is a new way of looking at user intent, which I think is going to be very important to people over time. So that's our keyword research tool right out of the box. If you're going to start a keyword research tool, some keyword research, you can start from your main dashboard. However, it does help to create a keyword research or a content brief, which is, how do I write about a particular keyword? It's better if you do it within a project. So what I'm going to do now is create a project. If you create a customer brief or a piece of content research outside of a project, it'll never go into a project later. But it is very useful if you're doing something for a client that you don't otherwise work for, so you don't have a project set up for them, you just want to do some keyword research as a prospecting piece of work, for example. But if you can, set up your briefs, your research, and work within a project. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a project, which is probably the first thing that you're going to do when you come into InLinks, because you probably already have a website. If you don't, then the keyword research is a great place to start. But let's create a project, and I have a desire to go to the Azores. The Azores are a bunch of islands in the Atlantic, which are owned by Portugal, and so I'm going to work with this website called Azores Choice. I have no affiliation with them, but decided to choose that as something that I hadn't seen before, so to speak. So if I create a project, then yes, you start with your website, but you also have to choose who your audience is here, and you can set things up at the moment in English, Spanish, French, Polish, German, Italian, other languages are coming on, and then also a country as well. So Spanish Venezuela and Spanish Costa Rica refer to the lookups that we do on Google and which country index we're going to look up. So I'm going to choose English United Kingdom because that's where I am, and I want the ideas and suggestions to talk to me as a Brit trying to get to the Azores. So we choose that out, and the very first thing that we do is do an index lookup to see how many pages we think are indexed in Google for this website. So this particular website says, well, there's 234 pages indexed, and so we don't necessarily always need all of the web pages in a website to come into InLinks to be able to tell Google all the important things. A lot of pages on websites are not that important, and are duplicate sort of bits of information. So in this particular one, we've taken about half the pages and suggested that 117 pages would be ideal. None of our recommendations go above 2,000 pages because we would like you, even if you have a much bigger website, to work on the first 2,000 pages before you just bring in all the other pages. Bringing in all the other pages later is great because all of the other pages will then get read. We'll see what pages have topics that you've already associated with ideas, and it'll create links instantly for you. But it's important not to waste your resources getting things wrong. So get the 2,000 pages up and then move on from there. Also, if you haven't got enough resource, then it may ask you to upgrade here. You don't have to upgrade here if you don't want to. You don't have to bring in all the pages, so you can override the numbers here and either start from scratch and bring in a blank project and add your own pages manually, or bring in a smaller number of pages that might fit your budget better. Now, if you start from scratch, one of the reasons you might do that, even if you're a big company, is that you may have different languages on websites. and or you don't really want a Spanish page to link to a English page, for example. So you may want to treat the Spanish content independently of the Polish content or the English content. So what you can do is start from scratch for a project, and then use something like Screaming Frog, or Sitebulb is one that I use a lot, to filter your web pages, or you can use Google Search Console, I think, but filter your web pages by language. So if you've got a subdirectory of .fr for all the French pages, then you could put all those pages into your French project, and all the /en ones into your English project, for example. So you can then start from scratch and add the pages manually to do that. One of the things that you do then have to do is have a slightly different piece of JavaScript code on each of the sections of your website. So there's a little bit of complexity there. Again, you can use Google Tag Manager to control which code fires. Or if you've got a web developer, I'm sure they can get the code to load at the right place at the right time. I'm going to, for this particular occasion, choose 50 pages just to show you what's happening here. So 50 pages is basically half the amount of a level 1 account. So we start from accounts as little as $39 a month, or £30 a month, or a European equivalent. And that will give you up to 100 pages. So I could do this, and I've still got capacity left over, even on the minimum account, to be able to write content and use other credits during the course of the month. So, this is now changed to 50 pages, so I'm going to proceed, and the recommendation has changed. Okay. So there's a long way to explain how you start to create a project. Let me explain what's happening in the background now that you've started your project. We're crawling all of the pages on your website, or in this particular one, the top 50 pages on the website. And we don't choose those pages just by crawling the homepage and clicking. What we try and do is get the pages that are most popular in the Google search engine. So what we've done is try to find an order which suggests that the more popular pages, organic pages, are given more of a priority. We don't always get that right, but it means that we should be pulling in your best pages first from an organic perspective. And then what we're doing is reading that content. So you can see that this particular website is about vacations and whale watching and tourism and flights and co-steering and these kind of ideas. So you can see that it's a travel website because it's reading the content, running our natural language processing algorithm over the content, and finding the underlying entities. At the same time, it's running Google's AI over that content as well, and seeing where Google identifies entities. But Google is much less aggressive in telling you what entities are on a web page than we are. They are very good at finding things with a capital letter, places and brands and those kind of things. Not so good at mentioning that this page is about hiking or that kind of more generic concept. So we create a website, and let me just go into the topic section first. By the way, there's a content planner getting built up in the background now. So this 73 here, we're now doing some keyword research on your website as well. So we're doing some content research at the content level, and I may have to pause the video and let this run before the end. But before I do that, let me jump in and show you the topics that this website is about so far. It's still analyzing. It's still got 29 pages under analysis, but we can already see that this is about things like the Azores, islands, vacations, United Kingdom, experts, whale watching, etc. So we've got the general topics and entities here for each of these ideas. And so what we want to do is to find the money ideas and set those to target pages, so that we know which pages have the should be getting the organic traffic, for example. So these are all the pages that mention the concepts of an island, or these are the pages that mention the concept of whale watching, for whales, for example. So we can use this section. We can also filter the topics, the topic graph here. But what we tend to do is have a look at the data on a web page level. So it's quite likely that you're going to know what pages are most important for your main concepts or ideas. But we have also put some data in here as well. We're not a rank checking company, but we used a third-party search API to find some information. So we have some information about your rankings at the moment. So around the concept of the Azores, this website, in fact, this web page was ranking for the phrase Azores at position 5 on the 4th of August 2022, which is today. And so we've got some search volume around that as well. So we can have a date stamp of when we brought the information in. And that works as long as you've brought the information in using the automated tool. If you brought it in by specifying the URLs, we don't do that lookup. So we have some idea of what things are already ranking for. And what we can do here is associate the main pages with the entities that they are relevant for. So let me do one of those. So let me do a topic association and explain how to really maximize this. So this page is quite clear. This is a nicely written website, and we can see that this is the main page about the Azores. The whole website is about the Azores, of course. The home page is about the Azores, and it may be that you want to say, right, the whole web page is about the Azores. But you know what? I think the whole website is about travel, actually, and if I look at it, it's really a travel-based website. So I am not going to make the homepage about the Azores because they've obviously built a page that is specifically designed to tell you about the Azores. So think about the actual content that's on the page and not try and introduce your own biases as to what you think the page should be about. So if I click on target here, then the different topics that we see on the page are listed here. So this page is talking about Azores and holidays, and we try and put the most important topics at the top. So even if it's seen, map 48 times, we know that's not really probably as important as travel or personalization or because they do personalized holidays. So, and if you get down to the bottom here, you're going to start getting to some much less important things. Museums may be important for anybody traveling to the Azores, but then it's not the main focus of the Azores. And smartphones, certainly, you just want to know, whether your smartphone is going to work in the Azores. So the idea here is that you can then have a look at an individual concept. If I click on Azores, it shows the vertical here, and we can just say, right, this is the web page that I want to have about the Azores. So I'm going to press select here. And you need to, and this is now says this is about the topic Azores, and I can click on that that idea. So now if I click on that idea, we see that this is associated with the topic of the Azores. And we have to associate one topic before we can actually test whether the JavaScript code is active. So this is showing a red JavaScript JS code is inactive message here, and I'm not going to add the code onto this website because I don't know them. However, in order to make the code active, you have to add this line of script onto the footer. For the techies amongst you, we use the defer tag so that we don't slow a website down. And we also suggest you put it in the footer just in case as well. This help and FAQs is very, very useful if you find that you've got an issue with the installation of the schema. So adding the script is important, but you can then check whether the code is implemented correctly. The check will not come up with a green message unless you've got at least one page associated with a topic. And that's because you need to have some kind of association for us to start working our magic. So if I refresh the page again here, we can see what's happened as a result of us making this the Azores page. We've created 45 links to this page from other pages on this website that are talking about the Azores. Now, bear in mind, we've only brought 50 pages in, so 45 of them are talking about Azores within the content. They're all linking now to the Azores page, therefore reinforcing the concept of Azores having its authority on the page at /Azores. It's also created some schema here. And we need to be able to see the schema that's generated or the links. And some links or schema need to be generated before we can verify that the code is active. So let's make a couple more associations and then show you what the magic is doing and how to play with it. So this may be a page that's about flights, for example. So if I click on type, it's seen that flights are here. We see that we can't select Azores again there. Let's go down to another one here. Let's go to Flores. So here we've got Flores, the island in the Azores. So we can select that. So as I say, you can't select Azores again now. The idea here is that we don't want you to have 4 pages about the Azores. Of course, we know that there's already 45 or 50 pages about the Azores, but you've got to decide if somebody wants to find out about the Azores, which page is going to come to the top. And on this particular website, you've written a page specifically about the Azores. So that's the one that is the focus. So therefore, all the other links, internal links around the concept of the Azores, need to generally send the user to the Azores webpage. So this page is about Flores, and that's great. Now, it doesn't mean that the schema doesn't update. So if I refresh my page here, in the background, things are starting to work as we start modifying the targets. In a second, we'll get some schema here for the Azores, for the flights and things. Let me go on to one of these schemas. So the Azure, this is the okay. So let's make a few more targets here. Holiday ideas. So this is about ideas. So this is a more complicated association because we haven't got a topic called holiday ideas. So what can we do when we've got a page that is about something that hasn't got a direct entity? There's a number of things that we can do. Most of them are in the advanced options here. So one of the things that we can do is enter a Wikipedia URL. And so if there is a page on Wikipedia about holiday ideas, then that's great. I don't suppose there is, but let's go and have a quick look. So no, they've got holidays and they've got vacations and adventure travel. But let's go to the concept of ideas for Wikipedia, and that will be something that we've got. So let's go to ideas. And we got the concept of an idea. We use Wikipedia a lot to help us explain to a search engine what we mean by a concept. So we can use the Wikipedia URL as a proxy for a knowledge graph ID in a third-party database like Google's knowledge graph, because that third-party database is going to have a very good understanding of Wikipedia URLs, because Wikipedia is laid out in a very, very structured manner. It is also based on its own knowledge graph of Wikidata. And so saying that a page is about something that is the same as a Wikipedia URL is as good as giving it the knowledge graph ID itself, and something that we can, as humans, understand a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that this page is about the concept of an idea, and because I haven't got that in my list, I'm going to put the Wikipedia page of idea down here, the Wikipedia URL, and so I can then save that, and that has effectively created the idea, the underlying topic. Let's go and do that with another one. Things to do in Furnace. That's a bit of a weird one. So let's have a look here. So Internet of Things, no. Furnace, we could sit there and say this is Furnace, but you know what? I'm going to say that I've probably got another page on Furnace, which is one of the islands. So I'm going to say that this is about the concept of ideas. Sorry, is about ideas in the context of Furnace. So this is quite a complicated association. So quite advanced in its idea. But now we've made the association within context. So we've got a little C here to say that there's context, and say that this page is actually about ideas, but ideas in the context of the island of Furnace. Now, the very last way to connect things is much weaker and not one I recommend. But if you really have to, you could set a target around a keyword. So also in the advanced options, if there's an entity that we've never seen before, is not in Google, but is not in Wikipedia, and there's no sort of similarity for it, then you could put keywords into here instead of a URL. So I've got this opportunity down at the bottom here. Sorry, it's underneath my mugshot, but I could sit there and say, right, British Airways Azores, which of course I wouldn't do, because I would sit there and say, right, this is British Airways in the context of the Azores or something like that. But I could, if I want to, make that association and save things at a keyword level. Now, there's some problems with doing that. The most important problem is that you have not given us a location, a URL that we can latch onto to say to a search engine that this is about a concept that's the same as this thing over here, which is definitely about an idea. So you're trying to take in too many ideas, so we haven't got a URL. So to do this properly, you should at some point add the schema and correct this and sit there and get to the, link it to, I don't know, the British Airways Azores page if there is an official one there. But none of those things are necessarily going to be picked up by a search engine. So I would rather you didn't do this. It means that you haven't really got to grips with the concept of topics and entities, or it means that our knowledge graph hasn't got to grips with the topic or entity that you're really trying to talk about. So one of those two things there. Either way, until you find a proper URL that you can say is the authority, then it becomes a difficult way for us to do things. So we're only going to build probably exact match anchor text links into here and have some error in the schema which you can fix, and we'll show you that in the schema page. So what's been happening in the background as we've been talking? We've got a load of schema that's been generated now, a load of links. So on each of these pages now, it's showing you how many links are going into a page, how many links are coming out of that page to other ideas. We don't recommend that you associate each page with a target. We recommend you only associate your money pages with targets, because you want your links to gravitate towards the important ideas on your website. So you don't need to have a target topic for contact, for example. If you do a contact page, that really isn't that important for you. What's important for you is that people understand you as an authority and an expert and trustworthy in the context of your business model. So we've created these internal links and this schema. Let me just show you the schema that was created to flights to the Azores. So if you remember, we set this target topic to be about flights. So in the schema, we have created the headline that's saying that this is about a thing called flight, and that's the same as this Wikipedia URL over here for flights. It doesn't mean that even though we've set another topic page to be the target for the Azores, we haven't ignored the Azores on this page. We've also said this is about the Azores. It's just that the links are for around phrases that are mentioned in the Azores are going to go towards the Azores page, and then links around the concept of flights are going to go to the flights page, which makes perfect sense within the context of this website, because everything is about the context of your own website and your own business. Okay, so that's the associations, the target associations, and the links. And you can dive into these and start playing with them, because we can sit there and say, right, we've said that this is about the concept of Flores Island, so I can click on here and see which pages on the website have linked through. And I can see where they've linked through. So if I click on this page, I can see that we've on this page linked through to the Azores page with the anchor text Azorean. So again, the idea of similarities and similes are coming out. So we said that the Azores page was about the Azores, and it's picked up that Azorean is probably meaning the same thing as Azores. We've also seen the link to the the mention of Flores, so that's linking through to the Flores page. So those links are then easy to see. You can see them in the context, but you can go a lot deeper, and you can start managing these links on the links tab over here. So the links tab shows you all of the links that you've created on your website, and here you can modify those links and check the links, and if you don't like any of them, you can just delete them as well. So on the right hand side, you've got an anchor text distribution to make sure that that most of the links are 1 or 2 words, and that you haven't got a 5-word phrase that's taken up all of the link equity, so to speak. So on the page that's about does British Airways fly to the Azores, we've seen that you've talked about the Azores and you've talked about flights, and it's linking through to the target page about the Azores and flights. And so you can either look at these by the source pages, or you can reverse this and look at the inbound links into them and say, right, okay, we probably want to do some stuff here because these are 1-word links, and as we get more elaborate on our link structure, that'll probably become a little bit more varied. But I can sit there and have a quick look at the link on with this long anchor text here, and I can dive into it if I want to. So Jake's family holiday to the Azores. We can sit there and see here was the Azores was a perfect choice for us, linking through to the Azores page. That's great, but maybe I want to take out the for us, for example. So I'm going to change that anchor text to just Azores was a perfect choice, and then close that, and that's fine. It's now updated the anchor text on that particular page. So I was linking through to the Azores page. Let's refresh that. So now we've got the link on Jake's family as paid holiday to the Azores, and we've got the anchor text here. But now we've specified that this is a manual link, because every time you go away from our concept of a natural language processing algorithm seeing a section of text about a particular idea and you override that, then it becomes a manual link. The human has taken over. We no longer will be able to manipulate this link algorithmically. So if you changed the landing page, the target page for the Azores, then this link wouldn't change, but these links might, because we would now see that there's another page that's the target for the Azores. So if you were to start changing these targets over here, if you start changing these targets over here, then in the background we will go and work out the links back into those pages from other places, but obviously manual links are now set in stone, so to speak. It doesn't mean so you can't do other things. You can remove the pages, remove the individual links, and if you really need to, you can also delete an entire page. So if I go onto the Azores page here, in the right hand side, we've got firstly we've got the topic, the entities tab, and this is already linked to the concept of the Azores. You've also got the content that's on the page. You've got the links coming into the page as well, and where they're coming from. But in actions here, and you can also have a look at the outgoing links and the schema here as well. But also from here, you can remove the page and bring it back in again. So ultimately, if you have to, you can always remove the page and then add it back in a little bit later on. So let's go back in here and have one more look at this screen here, because this is one that you'll spend a lot of time on. You've got the ability to filter using a search function here, because if you get a very large website, it becomes hard to see things. One tip for you, I do, if I have the whole URL, I do tend to use ends with and then put the URL in here rather than contains, because it's a much faster lookup. If you've got the whole link and it ends with, then it can find the page you're looking for a lot quicker. Also, you can do quick filters here, so you can have a look at, all sorts of things, including thin content, for example, which are ones with very small amounts of words on there. You can have a look at other bits and pieces which become more obvious as you start to use the product in its full entirety. For example, if you do audits or if you do content briefs or keyword research. So let's move on to an audit. You can see that an audit is what we're suggesting as the next thing to do. So on the right hand side here, you're seeing some project tips, and that happens all over the way the system. So if you're ever confused, specifically in the early days, just have a look at what tips we've come up with over here, because it may suggest what to do next to try and improve your website. But this particular page this particular project hasn't yet got any audited pages. I can verify that because I can filter by audited pages and there aren't any. So I can either add a page in here or I can audit a page that's already in the system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this page about the Azores and I'm going to audit it. It's currently position 5 for the Azores. That's a big phrase and a big win if I can do that. If I can get one more position, that would probably be good. So I'm going to do an audit for the Azores. And so I could stick with Azores, or I could say islands of the Azores, or travel to the Azores. I can change this keyword. I'm going to be, bold. And if I'm already position 5 for the Azores, I would love to be position 4 or 3 or 2 or 1. So in order to do an audit, what we need to do is understand what topics you should be talking about if you want to be seen as an authority around the concept of the Azores. And in order to do that, you need to know all of the topics that are on the other pages that are ranking for the Azores, and whether those topics are relevant to the Azores. And you need to make sure that that content is then reflected, or those ideas are reflected, obviously in a sensible style, in your own content. So what we're doing now is we're crawling the 10 web pages that are ranking in the UK for the phrase Azores right now. And what we're then going to do is show a content gap between the content that is on this web page and the content that is on the 10 web pages that are already ranking. So effectively, we're creating and comparing two knowledge graphs. We've already got a knowledge graph of the web page that you've got on the Azores, and now we're creating a knowledge graph of all the topics in the top 10 web pages for the phrase the Azores. We're also bringing in your content into a Scratchpad editor so you can change it. So this is already a fantastic page, and it's already getting a score of 100%. So it's saying that you're already talking about all of the things that are important to the content. And I don't think you're going to get better content than this. So the reason that this is not ranking number 1 is not because of the content, in our opinion. It's because this website hasn't got maybe enough credibility in terms of links, brand values, something else. So or core web vitals, there are other things that they're going to need to work on rather than the content, because this content is really good. It's talking about our competitors, the content that our competitors are talking about. As long as it's written well, then it's going to be well understood. We know it's written pretty well because we run the Flesch-Kincaid algorithm over the content, and this shows the how easy it is to read. If it's reasonably easy to read for a human being, then it's going to be easy to read for a machine as well. So the Flesch-Kincaid readability test is an old algorithm from I think the 60s that shows how easy content is to read, but it also gives us a good indication of how well a machine will see underlying concepts. And it's got plenty of words in here, so that's going to be a good content. So I'm not going to play with this one again. I'm going to go and dive into a project that's got a little worse content, because there's no point in trying to improve what's already brilliant. Let's go and have something that's slightly less successful. So maybe we want to do something that's going to be a big thing, and I'm going to choose whale watching. Whale watching is a tough one because you're going to be competing against a much wider audience than just the Azores. So we're already position 6 for the phrase whale watch, but I want to optimize for a much bigger phrase. So I'm going to press an audit here and change this to whale watching. And I'm sure that this page is already well optimized for the phrase whale watching, because the content writing on this site is very good. And all credit to that person. However, more data, more value, the ability to start using entities may give us a few ideas to just get that extra little bite that might allow us to go further up the rankings. And whale watching is a much harder phrase because it's not just people in the Azores, and there's obviously not that many websites around the Azores. So whale watching happens in California, in Iceland, and all over all over the Atlantic and the Pacific for that matter. So trying to rank for whale watching is going to be a more difficult concept. Let's go and have a look at what the knowledge graph is for whale watching in the UK. So this is a page which could do with some more work around the phrase whale watching. So firstly, there's a lot less words in here, 772 words, and the content score is down at 30%. Doesn't mean to say it's necessarily bad, but there is plenty of opportunities for us to improve the content around the concept of whale watching. So let's have a quick look at what's happening here. Again, we've got some keyword research happening in the background. You can only run one keyword research report at a time because that's running in your browser, and it's doing Google Suggest lookups, and it's trying to analyze via your browser. If you open two keyword research reports at the same time, that causes some problems and puts a stress on the system. So just have one running at a time, let it run in the background, go and have a cup of coffee if you need to. But we've seen on this web page that you're talking about the concept, or this page is talking about the concept of whale 14 times, and that's great. That's going to cover the bases. Down here, we've seen some things that you're not talking about, and some of them are not so important. So we've got the concept of a website, for example. That's a common thing that happens, that we pick up the idea of a website because you are a website, of course, but really that may not be as relevant, and that as a human being. So if you find that, you can remove that topic from the computation. So now we've taken out the concept of websites from the computation, so it's going to effectively adjust things. And actually the content score has gone up, look, as a result of just taking that calculation out. The guide here might be more important. So if let's click on guide, because we've not talked about guides. Let's make sure that it's relevant. We here show you the synonyms. There aren't for this particular one. We've got the concept of related topics of National Geographic, ocean currents. These look like the related topics that are relatively similar to the kind of guide that we would be wanting to talk about. So I think that's a good idea. We need to talk about guides. So maybe we want to add the concept of guides. Let me show you what's happening as I type here. Look what's happening on the screen. So we have a guide. Guide. And as I mentioned the word guide, it picks up the entity and sees that you've talked about the concept of a guide. That's now gone to 1. It may be that this is still grey because you still need to talk about guide a few more times to get into sort of the same zone as the other people, or eventually it will see that you've now covered the topic in your content. It's also then made a small change to the content score, so that runs in the background and updates every 30 seconds or so, I think. So it saves as you go. If you ever need to just save it, you can press the save button, but ultimately here we're able to improve this content, improve the content score. After around about 80-85%, I think you have to again say, well, your expertise is probably going to be better than the AI's expertise. So I wouldn't strive to get 100% score. I think you shouldn't set that as a KPI for your content writers either. Somewhere in the 80 to 85% range and good content is much better than 100% score and you've used AI content generation, automated content generation to get there. You can, of course, use content generation to get there if you want to, but it's not my preference. I think we can do a much better job as humans still. So let's have a look at what's been happening in the background with our with this report and some of the other things that we've got. So we've got a topic gap. This is a useful way of looking at our topics. So we've got all the topics that we've seen on the web page. So whale, if you remember, we saw 14 times, and now it's 18 times. in our on our content, it's 14 times that we've seen it. On average, our competitors are mentioning whales on this page 18 on their pages 18 times. One of them is down to 10 times. One of them is 30 times. So basically, if you're only mentioning whales twice, then you're probably not being, emphasizing the concept of whales enough. If it's up in the 100 times, then maybe you're over egging it. But we've kind of given you a sort of a field and green if you're up to the mark, if you like. We don't mind if you mention it loads more times, but you may be wasting your words after a while. This content gap analysis also tries to give you a key recommendation. So we think that you should be talking about at least 66 topics, and you really want to increase your article length. Now, I think that Google doesn't say it matters how long your article is, but the idea here is that your competitors have got around about 1,200 words of article, and they're covering the main topics, and they're obviously seen by the search engines as authoritative around the phrase whale watching. Your content, or this content, has less words, and it may be that that's because you're not covering enough information in enough depth. So we kind of put some ideas on here. And we also mentioned the main missing topics. Again, you need to decide whether the AI is working for you. I think that we've mentioned website, which we've now taken out the calculations. Animals, yes, I think that is important to talk about, and an experience is definitely important to talk about. Iceland is interesting because it is likely that one of your competitors in the phrase whale watching is focusing on Iceland. So we can have a look at that and see what happens. So we got sites down here, and one of these is almost certainly going to be talking about whale tourism in Iceland. I don't know which one. So you've got to decide whether you want to mention Iceland, thereby diluting your emphasis on the Azores, or whether you want to ignore Iceland and say, well, I want to be better than whale watching without mentioning Iceland. I would suggest it may be worth showing a table, perhaps, of the advantages of whale watching in different countries, and highlighting the Azores as a great alternative. However, what you can do here is see the 10 websites that we've built the knowledge graph on. And this is really quite useful. And also you can use this to manipulate the knowledge graph that we're analyzing as well. So these are the top 10 web results for the phrase whale watching as we saw them. And from here, you can check that they're relevant. If they're not relevant, then you can delete them. So you can change them. So this is the one about Iceland holidays. So it might be that you want to say, you know what, we're not competing with them. The decision to go to Iceland or the Azores is not really what our user is intending to ask. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that to whatever URL is in position 11, for example. In some instances, it hasn't happened here, it may be that a website is also blocking bots and not allowing bots to crawl the content. Now that's fine. At that point, you've got to make a decision and decide whether you want to still crawl that content, because if you're allowed to see the content, we can analyze what you see. So you can cut and paste the source code here of that web page, and we'll analyze that instead of the content on the other person's website. So whatever you put in there, we can analyze that instead. And that means you could also put in a page that isn't yet live as well, if you wanted to. And so you could compare with a non-live page as well. Also on these we show you stuff on the right hand side about these pages. So this is the TUI page, shows you how long the page is, whether how that compares to the average length of these articles, compares to readability. We have this metric on search engine understanding, which is an advanced metric, and also one that's our own beta metric. I'll briefly explain what it is. There is a full web page on InLinks about SEU, but essentially we've run Google's algorithm over natural language processing algorithm over the content, counted how many entities they report, and then we've run our own and counted how many entities we report, and one is this percentage is a function of one divided by the other. We'll always find more entities than Google, but we can see whether Google is picking up the entities. What's interesting is that we find that most times, there's an average around all the different verticals of around about 24%. In verticals like travel, it tends to be quite good because Google understands, as I said before, countries and places and things that start with a capital letter, and travel tends to use a lot of places in their content. On this particular one, the topics that Google has detected are the TUI group itself, the Foreign Commonwealth Office, Bedfordshire, which is where they're based, I think, Luton, Facebook, Twitter, Google Play. So it's picked up these things that are not necessarily related, but clearly they've got their Twitter profile and their Facebook profile on the site. And so you can have a look at those. We also have this fantastic topic chart. And this gets a lot of attention because it's another way at looking at your topic gaps, if you like. So if I jump in here, I can see all of the topics categorized. So we've got here fishes, for example. And I know whales are not fish, but anyway, they've come into the fishes category, as have dolphins, and you're talking about those concepts. What you're not talking about is killer whales, the concept of fishing, and Catacea, which I suspect is, I don't know, maybe that's Latin for whale. I don't know. So these ideas here are ones that are in your content and in your competitors' content, and then the outside ring are topics that are in your competitors' content but not in yours. So for some websites, the vertical becomes very, very important. So this is a tourism website. So maybe the idea of a tour guide, an excursion, and a cruise ship are very, very important ideas. So if I click on tour guide here, so I can't click on tour guide here. So if I want to talk about tour guides, I should do, and excursions and cruise ships, because these are interesting ideas to bring in. So we've tried to, traffic light this topic wheel, which can be quite valuable for you. So that's the SERP analysis and topic gaps. Let's jump into the content research, keyword research, and content plan. So the keyword research was running in the background, and as we said before, we categorize and cluster keyword research quite a lot. So within the concept of whale watching, we've got all of these ideas that have been seen on our competitors' sites. We don't have to talk about them. Of course, you don't have to talk about New Zealand. You don't have to talk about Vancouver if you don't want to, but you might want to. You might want to have a suggestion, pluses and minuses of going to New Zealand. Very expensive to go from the UK. Vancouver, very expensive to go to the UK. Iceland, very cold. Whatever it may be. So you can have these ways of promoting whale watching in the Azores compared to Iceland, for example. So you can see all these clusters, and you can also remove a cluster. So you don't want to talk about whale watching in Reykjavik too much, even though there was a search volume here of about 1,000 a month for the phrase. As soon as they've typed in whale watching in Reykjavik, they are not your customer. So you can take them out of the system. So they can take the whole cluster out and remove it from your thought processes. On the other hand, you can sit there and say, you know what, dolphins, we do have dolphins around the Azores coast, so maybe we want to talk about those a little bit more. So I click on those. I can dive into that and say, you know what, I can choose a few of these keywords and add those in to my ideas. So I want to talk about coupon codes. We've got some coupon codes for affiliates, so yeah, we can mention that. Or we want to jump into talking about Funchal, for example. So you can choose those. Every time you press a plus button, it starts affecting what happens on your editor here. So underneath your content, we allow you to start thinking about ideas and adding ideas. So when I pressed dolphin codes, we've got the keyword and it's added it in as an idea here. So this is useful for helping prepare a content writer to develop their ideas, because we can have all these ideas added. But we've gone further than that, and we've actually created a whole content plan. So this is very useful if you haven't written a page on whale watching so far. If you've not written a page on whale watching, then you maybe do some keyword research or content audit on a content brief, which is create a brief for a page that doesn't exist yet. Then you will get this same editor here, but it'll start by saying, type your text here, and you can then quickly build out some instructions for a content writer. So if you're going to talk about whale watching, of course you want to talk about the concept of whale watching, so you can just add the whole section in to your content plan. We don't want to talk about Vancouver Island. We do, however, want to talk about dolphins. We don't want to talk about Iceland. We want to talk about responsibility. We don't want to talk about Cape or California, but we do want to talk about what a wonderful trip they're going to have. And then maybe we also want to add some information about pluses and minuses of these individual ideas. So what we can do then is maybe give the content writer some instructions to say, please give a plus and minuses versus Vancouver, Iceland, and the Cape and California. So on the content plan now, underneath it, I've got this whole content ideas plan written out. It's come out with the underlying ideas that we think we should talk about. These are ideas that are mentioned in competitors' content, so whale and dolphin watching, everyone's favorites. So you can use these as inspiration. I wouldn't recommend that you use these phrases exactly in your final content, but you could use them as inspiration to help you for each section. But also you can then say, please also add a table comparing Vancouver, California, so you can give some instructions to your content writer as well, or save those notes for later. The idea is you're going to improve this content and add to this content and make it the best content. So now when I go back to my project, I can then assign this job to a writer. So we're not going to bother assigning the Azores content because it's already well optimized. The whale watching content, though, we do want to send out. So what I'm going to do is press this button here. So as soon as a page is audited, and you can also do this with a content brief if you want to create a brief from nothing, you can assign this to an editor. So this allows you to a writer. So this allows you to add new writers or set up a due date and leave a message for them. They will then be able to log into their version of InLinks. They don't have to pay any money to do that, and they can see your content assigned to them. If they do have an account of their own, then they will have a full account and they will have a directory of customers brief. If I go back to the main dashboard here, you will see that there's this customer brief tab, which is a list of briefs that other InLinks users have assigned to you as a content writer. So a content writer status doesn't need to have a paid account themselves, but they can. But it means that they can edit the content that you've given them and do that with the full editing suite capabilities, but without having to worry about the schema and the internal linking and all that part of the stuff that is not really their forte. So I think we've covered most of the important elements of the system. We've talked about content, how to associate targets with pages. What we haven't talked about is the actual content planner for the website. That's a very important thing. So the content planner at a website level looks very similar to a content planner or the keyword research report. And in many ways it is, but it's built out a very different methodology or slightly different methodology to work out where you've got gaps and ideas, or where you might have gaps and ideas that are going to be relevant to your content. So what it did when it built the project is, of course, it understood all of the underlying concepts on your website. It then fed all of those underlying concepts back into Google Suggest, and that came out with other suggestions. So it will have thrown Azor's Pico, for example, into Google Suggest, and it's seen that, you know, some people are looking at the mountain, some people are looking at the wine, some people are looking at the weather. All of these are really interesting ideas that maybe you've not yet talked about on your website. So great ideas for potentially expanding your website in a way that we know people are searching for, or at least Google thinks are going to be relevant to you. So you can sit there and choose, and we've tried to give them a priority. Azor's Pico, we probably already have got content for because you've got a page on Pico, but maybe you want a whole page on the wine, for example. And if we jump onto the whale watching, maybe we want to talk about all the time of year. So maybe we need to talk about, you know, going in July versus August, or maybe we want to talk about the different islands that we've got. So every time I press a plus here, it's adding something to what we call a content queue. So let's go and also add a couple of questions. So maybe we want to sit there and say, right, we want to talk about the best whale watching tours, for example. So we can choose those. And every time we press the plus here, it's going to a content queue. Because remember, we can only analyze keyword research around one thing at a time. So now we've got a queue saying, you know what, when we're ready, we really probably want to write a page on Azor's Pico wine. So we set this up on this date. So now we want to create a brief around this to go and be able to give it to our content writer or to write the content ourselves. So now we just go to here and it starts to create the whole content brief and keyword research for the phrase Azor's Pico wine. I'm going to pause the video now for a second because I want to jump back and show you the keyword research at a page level versus the content level, and just show you the differences before we sign off. So a content brief is very much similar to a content audit, but you haven't got any content. So in the editor here, it just starts by typing your text here. If you're running a content brief, I would allow all this content research to run if you can before you start taking its advice, because the NLP allows us to extrapolate and remove things that we find might be in Google Suggest but are not relevant to your particular content. So you can run that. You can also pause these things as well, so that they stop running. But if you can, allow them to go through to the end. So let's go back to my project now and go back to my content planner. And these things up here show you the difference between your content planning or your keyword research at a project level versus keyword level. So the keyword level is going to show you your individual reports. We've run one here for Azor's Pico wine. And so you can dive into those individual reports, and you can also see the content queue that are there and have a look at those as well. So I think we've covered most of the stuff here, except for the ability to edit the schema. So right at the start, I don't know if you remember this far back, we created something at a keyword only level in my schema, and this is where you can start editing your schema. So you can also see the schema as well. So let's go and have a look at the Azores page. We've said that this is about a thing called the Azores, and it's also about islands, and it also mentions these ideas. So this schema is already injected straight into your web page. If you don't want it injected into your web page, then you have the ability to switch all the schema off. And we have two types of schema. We've got content schema and FAQ schema. Others may arrive in the future. FAQ schema doesn't have any on this particular website, but if we had found more than one question on a page in an H tag followed by paragraphs of text, we would have called that FAQs, and therefore it would have generated some FAQ schemas. So if you've got another tool that is creating FAQ schema, for example, you may decide that you don't want us to make the FAQ schema live using our content planning. You might want to use another tool. So you have the ability to independently set those on and off. But let's also look here at the other ones and have a look at the page that we put a specific keyword into. Where was it? So I think we used this page where we used the idea of no, it was British Airways, wasn't it? So it was this British Airways one where we created a keyword level. Here we go, a keyword level entity. So if I have a look at this schema, one last thing for the experts that have made it all this way, you'll see that the schema that's been created has said that this is about a thing called British Airways Azores, and that's because a human in the loop forced this to be a keyword association and not an entity association, in which case you as an individual has to say where the authority is for the concept of British Airways Azores. So you can put in any URL in here that you want, and we can then present that to a search engine. Things that are usually respected are maybe IMDb URLs, Wikidata URLs. There's plenty of others. People have used Crunchbase. So I use my LinkedIn profile on my own website for me because I say I am a person and I have my LinkedIn profile. But we can't say that a search engine is going to treat these with respect. What I can say is that if you don't put some URL in there, technically you're not giving complete schema data. So it would be nice to put something in there, or remove it again and realize that you should really be doing your schema based around entities, not keywords. You do have the ability to edit all of these as well, so you can add something. You can either add something in the about section of that schema, so you've got a WYSIWYG way of creating your schema. So we could sit there and say that this page is about a organization called BA, and then maybe link to the Wikipedia page for British Airways, for example, and that would create that line of code and that section within the schema as well. Guys, I've covered a lot of ground here. There's some other things that we'll be working on. We're dedicated and passionate about what we're doing. We think that InLinks is fundamentally different in its approach as a entity SEO suite to a lot of other tools out there. If you have any questions, please do use the chat box in the bottom right hand corner, because whilst we're usually on UK time, we do have teams around the world, and we all try and look at the chat and use that as our customer support. If you don't have that little blue box there, if you've got some kind of pop-up blocker, then you can also inquire through the support button on the help in the top right hand corner, and that will get you to a web form that you can use instead. It helps a lot if you use the web chat, because we can then get your query to the best person at the best time. In terms of using InLinks, the cost is anywhere between £30 and $2,000 a month. At $2,000 a month, you start to get into enterprise territory, and we start giving you your own dedicated server, so you're using your own resources, so you're not limited in quite the same way, and so you can get a lot more pages into your system. It's good if you've got a lot of websites. If you're an agency, then you might want to start on an agency account, which is level 4, which is around about 430 pages total. It's a very small agency, but as soon as you get to that particular level, you can add users. So it means that you can have different people in your organization with their own logins, and that's useful because they can then use the chat independently, and you don't find yourself getting each other's questions in your inbox. And also, if you go up the system at level 4, you also get some API access as well. The API access, well, all of it has limitations based on the number of pages that you can get into the system, the combined number of pages. And then you also get a credit allowance for doing content reports every month. If you really want to understand how the pricing works, type in how InLinks pricing works into your favorite search engine. And if we don't get there, then clearly choose another product. I hope that you do use InLinks. I hope you find it valuable. If you need further proof, please have a look at the case study section on the InLinks blog. We've got a lot of customers now that have given us some impressive case studies. It's not just about optimizing for the search engines. It's about optimizing for the users as well. Enjoy your day. Thank you for your time.